All right, Nate.
Yes, sir.
Nate, where are you from originally? Where'd you grow up?
Southwest suburb of Chicago, called Warrenville.
And tell me about your family growing up. You had mom and dad?
Yeah, mom and dad, they're actually still together to this day, surprisingly. Um,
How would you describe your childhood?
my childhood was it was a little rough in the aspect of capital punishment was used a lot in my house. I come from a martial arts background, so if we're getting scolded, it was like this: yes, sir; no, sir. If I'm dropping my guard a little bit, I'm getting cracked upside the head. Um, but at 9 years old, for example, I actually had to take courses on how to take care of an infant because that's when my little brother was born. And I would have to stay home from, I thought it was cool because I didn't have to go to school, but I had to watch my little brother and take care of him because both my parents had to work double shifts to keep the roof over our head. So we didn't have a lot of money. And I was the babysitter, essentially. But which is pretty stressful for a 9-year-old to have an infant's life in his hands. But I think I did a good job. You know, my little brother today is like my best friend. But you know, dad was a drinker. Come from a British. I'm half Sicilian, half British. We never talked to the Sicilian side of the family ever, and I don't know why. But just to kind of give you an idea, I got a detention once in third grade, and I ran away from home because I was scared of what my dad was going to do to me about the detention. By the time I was 10 years old, they put locks on the liquor cabinets because me and my younger brother were drinking all their alcohol. So I actually started drinking at about 8 years old. And, you know, I remember the first time my parents, you know, I come from a rock and roll background. You know, he was in a band, they toured all over the country, and they rode motorcycles. And I remember hiding under the table as a kid, grabbing my dad's gin, slamming it, and hearing his friend say, "Stanley, I think your son just drank your drink." And he said, "Well, I guess he's going to be fucked up then." And I was. And at the time, it was laugh, haha, look at the little kid, he's drunk. But then once everyone leaves, now I'm getting my ass beat because I'm an embarrassment to the family. So it was a lot of that back and forth stuff, not knowing when I'm going to get beat up for what. So there was physical abuse there. There was mental abuse there. I was pretty lucky on the sexual abuse. I escaped two different pedophiles from the neighborhood. So I got pretty lucky as a child with the pedophilia stuff. But it was physical violence, so on a daily basis. I mean, he put my mom in the hospital before. I have years of my life that are blacked out. My brain won't let me remember. I think it's like a defense type thing that your brain does for you to keep you sane. Where my other brother remembers things and I thought he was lying, but he's not. Stuff did happen as far as the violence goes. But besides that, growing up in the suburb of Chicago in the 80s, we play Ghost in the Graveyard. You know, we would a lot of outdoors. Not like the kids today with all the video games. Like we went outside and played. Me and my brother were the bad kids on the block, so that was a little rough sometimes because the neighbor kids' parents wouldn't let their kids play with us. So we were alone a lot. But I did get a lot of freedom. I could basically do and go wherever I wanted, which is not necessarily a good thing for a kid always, but I could do that. I'd like to say that um, my childhood, it's, I'd like to say it was a good childhood, but after having lots of therapy over the years, I am an adult abused child, the way that I was raised. My mom used to put my thumb in Tabasco sauce because I sucked my thumb until I was about 8. And I just heard about a woman going to jail for doing that to her kid recently. It's considered child abuse today. I just love spicy food now.
Did you finish high school?
I did. Yep, I got my high school diploma. I graduated 3rd in my class from the bottom. The only 2 that were lower than me were mentally challenged. That was my goal pretty much, though, was to smoke as much weed as possible and sleep as much as I possibly could and still get that diploma. And I did it. Mission complete on the high school. I was very proud of being a slacker. I think they were just kind of tired of seeing me there, so they got me out of that school.
What'd you do after high school?
After high school, at about 16 years old, so I would have still been in high school. There's an organization called the Latin Kings. They're a gang, and they would advance me large quantities of marijuana to sell. And so for a 16-year-old, I had more money than all my other friends. They call me barbecue because if I was scared the phones might be tapped. So if I say I'm barbecuing, that means I got weed. So that's how that nickname stuck. But I dropped out of a couple different colleges, and I just pretty much sold a lot of weed. Then I met some people that were in telecom sales, and I worked as a sales manager for AT&T on and off for about 17 years, which I thought was an accomplishment with no credentials and criminal background, but I would actually sell business accounts on and off. The addiction kind of controlled how often I would be working.
What was your drug at the time?
The drug? Okay, and I'm sorry if I talk fast or jump around, trying not to, but I drank alcohol from the age of 8 to 21. I started doing heroin at 21 years old, and that I instantly fell in love with it. I quit drinking together completely and devoted it to heroin at that time. I've never stole anything in my life until I got addicted to heroin, and it was from my own parents too. And I told on myself, but back then they didn't know what to do, so they threw me in the psych ward. And that was the beginning of my life getting very, very hard after that. I got kicked out of my folks' house, and I'll never forget the first time being homeless in Illinois. I mean, we get negative 30 wind chills up there sometimes. It's cold. I woke up in a park bench, and I was shivering, and there was frost all over the grass, and that was the first time that I really contemplated suicide. Very depressing, and I felt really betrayed by my own folks at that point. But did I answer your question? I'm trying not to ramble too much so you can ask me questions.
No, it's okay. You're doing good. And so you've been living on the streets for how long?
I've been chronically homeless for 20 years now.
But you've had jobs during some of that time?
I've had pretty much the same job, which is also an interesting thing. AT&T, not corporate, obviously. My boss is more or less an Italian mobster, and he was able to ghost me into his company as a subcontractor, regardless of the fact that I have felony possession drug charges, regardless of the fact that I don't have any sort of sales or business credentials.
But despite having a job, the drug addiction keeps you homeless?
Yeah, it would go to that eventually. In the beginning, it would actually seem to enhance my ability to work. But then it's either I'm too strung out, I'm either too high to work, or I'm too sick to work eventually. And I grew up with a lot of gangs surrounding me, but I did not want to be a gangbanger. I never joined a gang. And I don't like to steal either. So when I didn't have a job, it's panhandling is how I would support my habit. I have done things though, other things for money. I have prostituted myself before. Not proud of that at all, but I can talk about it pretty easy now. Um, Basically everything that I never thought I would ever do, I have done. I never thought I'd use a needle. After about a year of using heroin, I used a needle for the first time. And the addiction only progresses then.
So when you've been in LA, how long?
Okay, so LA, I've been here, this is day number 18 for me. And I left Chicago. Okay, this is real fucked up here, what I'm about to tell you. I left Chicago. One of the reasons I left Chicago, just one of them, there's a guy there who he did 19 years for murder, and his job in prison was to rape for the Gangster Disciple organization, and he fancied me quite a bit. I'm not gay, number one, and I'm actually kind of scared of the guy. Well, because I denied him a romantic relationship with me, he decided that I needed to die. So I would constantly have to worry about this guy trying to kill me. Jail was something he's not afraid of. He's at home there. So that was one of the reasons that I wanted to get away from having to constantly worry about this person. On top of the violence is just, the poverty is over 500,000 now in Chicago. So it's you got a lot of people doing a lot of really desperate things. And when it gets cold, it only gets worse. And being homeless for that many years, I don't, a lot of the CPTSD, the complex post-traumatic stress syndrome that I have, is from being homeless in the cold, because it's quite hard to survive sometimes when it's that cold. You just have to kind of figure out where you can go, and if you can't go anywhere, you might freeze to death. So it's a very, very stressful environment. So I left Chicago, I came here. On the way here, I took an Amtrak train. Of course, I had a very bad opiate habit I've already developed there. Well, I made it all the way to New Mexico, and they decided that I was too sick to be on the train. They called the police. I accidentally sent myself into precipitated withdrawal on the train, and I was escorted off the train. So I was stuck there for about 3 days. But I got to LA, and I got to Skid Row. And it didn't shock me at all. I actually felt like this feels a little bit kind of like home to me. So two things happened in LA here. The second day I was here, there's a gang here called they're called GBG. They're the Gay Boy Gangsters, is what they're called. I guess they're out of West Hollywood, but it started in prison. Well, this particular incident, I was just by myself on the outskirts of downtown. Somebody asked me hey, you want to smoke? Sure, why not? Because people here are a lot friendlier than Chicago. They say hi, they talk to you. In Chicago, we have a 3-second rule. We don't look at each other. So, okay, cool. Maybe I made a new friend. So we go to there's like this bridge, which I was already thinking going down there anyway. I jumped down there, but then there's this cave basically in the side of the cliff, and there's already 2 people in there. Well, we go in there, and I didn't see it coming at all, but there's three of them and one of me, and they decided they all wanted to have sex with each other, and I didn't think that was happening because I just don't think about, I'm not gay, so I wasn't thinking about men having sex. So I'm just kind of sitting there, and they're laying side by side like this, and I was sitting on this end like this, and when I look over at them, I can see what's going on, and obviously I felt very uncomfortable. Thank God which I found out later was like the boss, he kind of stopped. He said, maybe we should get friendly at a different time. And one of the other ones replied, don't worry, man, we're not going to fuck you like that. So in an instant, they decided they were going to be friends with me and not rape me. So a couple weeks go by. It's been 3 days now since this other thing happened. I don't remember exactly where I was. I was trying to go somewhere different to Panhandle. I still have to support this addiction that I have. I do have liver cancer now, so I'm in a lot of pain. And I use the fentanyl medicinally, if you can wrap your mind around that. I actually think it's keeping me alive at this point. But anyway, I went to a different part of LA that I was unfamiliar with, trying to find somewhere new to go. And it gets blurry. Someone invited me to come smoke some marijuana with them. And there's a couple other people there. I was drugged. I don't know what type of drug it was because I've never felt that way before. I was in and out of consciousness, very confused and disoriented. But I was held prisoner for about 3.5 days, and I was raped. I don't know how many times I was raped or by how many people. I don't know. I went to the hospital though, and I'm okay so far anyway. But to get out of that situation, at first there was about 6 people holding me captive, and they took me to, maybe it was a swinger club. I don't know where I was. I really don't know. But eventually it was just one guy holding me captive, and I was able to convince him that I wanted to be there. Even though, this is really embarrassing, they wouldn't let me use the bathroom, and they were making me wear an adult diaper, which is disgusting. And they're threatening me with a blowtorch. They're gonna burn my head. So they'd put the flame right by my face, and it was scary. It was pretty scary.
Welcome to LA.
Yeah, right. And like I'm thinking, no, I'm from the west side of Chicago. I could handle this. I never in a million years thought that I would be a rape victim ever. I kickboxed for 8 fucking years. I can handle myself. And I was held hostage and raped. It happened.
Yeah, you're drugged.
Yeah. If the drugs is really what did it. I guess it's some stuff called liquid G, is what somebody was telling me. But I convinced this guy basically that I want to be his boyfriend. And I got him to let his guard down enough that I could escape out of there. When I did escape out of there, I was in the Crenshaw part of town. Crenshaw. And didn't know, I had no idea, even what side of town I was on. But I was so weak from my diabetes and not getting my medicine, I literally was crawling on the ground. and I would have to stop and take breaks and lay on the sidewalk. And no one seemed to ask if I need help or anything like that, which was kind of alarming. I try to help people when I'm walking around if I see like they're in trouble. Not the white guy, not the white guy on the sidewalk though. Uh, I got away, and I'm still kind of in shock about it. I'm ashamed about it. I know it's not my fault. I just feel like I wish I was smarter than to fall for that. And I'm angry about it too. And the thing is, I don't know who it was. I don't know really where I was, because the place that I got out of that was in Crenshaw or Grenshaw. Was it Cren or Gren?
Kren. See.
When I got out of Crenshaw, it was like an apartment complex. Wherever they took me, it was like some strange little mini town, is the best way I can describe it. Like, there's a house here, a barn here. Everyone had neon stuff on. It almost looked like a rave. That's why I thought maybe it was a swinger club or something like that. But I had no idea where that was. So even if I wanted to retaliate, I wouldn't know who to retaliate on. And it's just something that I have to live with now.
Life in the streets.
Yeah.
You can blame your drug addiction.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's really it all stems from the drug addiction. I've a lot of loss.
Have you been in love before?
Yeah, it's interesting you ask me that, because that's kind of where I was going next. And I used to have a son. If I start crying, I'm sorry. This one's hard to talk about a little bit, even harder. But I call her the ex-pirate hooker. This woman, because there's a couple women in my life, but the ex-pirate hooker is the type of lady that doesn't love her own kids. She's a sociopath, doesn't have the ability, maybe psychopath, honestly, doesn't feel emotions. And we had a son. When he was 3 months old, I found him in the crib with sudden infant death syndrome, which is they can die a few different ways from it, but I found him like that. And
Sorry.
well, don't be sorry yet. This was the most terrifying experience of my whole life, was holding my baby in my arms and he was gone. I brought him into the living room. Everyone in the house, this is at ex-pirate hooker's family's house, by the way. But I brought him into the living room. Everyone was crying, and I'm agnostic, so I don't even really like to say the word God. I don't know what it is. Something took over my body at that point. I pushed everyone out of the way. I remember thinking, he's got little lungs, don't breathe too hard. So I'd puff a couple air into his lungs, and I used 2 fingers to tap on his chest. After the 3rd time I did it, he woke back up again. When the paramedics got there, they were, did somebody breathe air into him? I said, yeah, I did. They're like, you saved his life, good job. Which was, I had dreams about finding dead babies for months after that. It was horrifying. Well, that's when he was 3 months old. 2 months later, I come to find out he's not mine biologically. And that it broke my heart, to say the least. But the pirate hooker said, oh, the real dad's gone, there's no way he's ever going to be around. And that was my son. I cut his umbilical cord. He had my middle name, my last name, and especially after what happened when I found him, I was very attached to him. I nursed him with the bottle. She couldn't even make breast milk. That was my baby, and nobody was going to tell me otherwise. And I raised him for 5 years. And, well, in the 5th year, turns out biological dad wasn't gone. He was there the whole time. I just didn't know it. She knew it. And court battle ensued. Long story short, because that I can make that one long, but I'll shorten that segment up. I had full custody of him. And I ended up signing my rights off because at the last court date, I was so dope sick that I couldn't even get dressed. I was fetal position, and I had my lawyer sign my rights off on him, which I believe was the best thing to do at the time because he's now with his biological father. They have a house. They have jobs. He has brothers and sisters now. Stable environment that he can grow up in. Maybe I was put in his life just to save him that one day. I don't know. I miss him every day, though. You know. Sorry about that.
A lot of twists and turns.
So, you know, I wonder if he even remembers who I am. But so I meet this other amazing woman later, and it's interesting too because her now ex-husband was a sadistic piece of shit who raped and beat her for 7 years. He is now ex-husband, and I was with her through the whole court thing with that. But I have a daughter with her now too. And because, again, of my fucking addiction, when she was pregnant, I relapsed, and she ended up giving birth. I didn't know when she was born, so I'm not on the birth certificate. She put her into an open adoption. But the good news is, the first night she tried to leave her with the adoptive parents, the baby hunger struck, would not eat food. She wanted mom's boob. So mom ended up moving in with the adoptive parents, and they haven't been away from each other not one day. So that's good, and I'm still very much in love with her, but she doesn't drink or use drugs. She comes from a very, very hard background, but her inner child has an attachment to me because her parents are drug addicts. And she's been waiting for me to get my shit together for about 5 years now, and I'm losing her. I'm trying not to. I would really like to work things out. At this point, I just want a nice, boring Mr. Rogers life. Would be my dream come true, and just be a dad. But it's a lot of work that I got to do. But there's hope there where I can hopefully not lose a second child and be in her life.
That'd be nice.
But I have what's called borderline personality disorder. So when I feel things, I feel very deeply. When I love hard. And when I'm depressed, it's actually called psychotic depression. So people that have what I have, we have the highest percentage of suicide. I've tried to commit suicide several times. Just because the lifestyle is hard. You know, constantly having to survive every day. I'll tell you this though, since I've been to LA, the weather's lovely. I never want to see another snowflake ever again.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah. And it's nice in that aspect. But as far as that goes, if it doesn't work out with her, I give up on love after that because I'm only 40, but I do have liver cancer now. It's stage 4. I'm not going to get radiation. I'm not going to do any of that because it doesn't really make much sense for me to go get chemo and then go lay on the sidewalk, like a concentration camp victim, weakness, laying on the sidewalk homeless. I'm not going to do it. My theory is you wouldn't guess it by looking at me, but my body, I got pretty good genetics, and I feel like it's learned to adapt to it a little bit. So when I go. But the drug addiction now at this point is I feel like it's keeping me alive. When I was held prisoner last week, I thought I almost died because the pain was so unbearable and my blood sugar was so low. This past year, I have fallen into a coma twice because of it, which is a really weird feeling, going into a coma. So, I mean, I'm 40 years old, but I feel like a senior citizen. I've experienced flashbacks from the PTSD where I'll actually think I'm in a different year, like 15 years ago. And I'm living then. And it's a scary feeling when you can kind of feel yourself losing your mind. That's what scares me more than anything. I don't want to lose my mind. I hope I'm dead before that happens. But every single friend that I've ever had is dead, mainly from overdosing or getting shot. When the heroin epidemic in about year 2000s, when it started, everybody's gone now. And I'm alone. And that's how I go through life. I keep to myself, and I really scrape by the skin of my teeth every day. I'm surviving every day. It stems from the addiction. It does. And nothing that's good in life comes easy. And I've learned the hard way on that one. There's a difference between being stupid and foolish. I'm not stupid, but I've made some very foolish choices. And if you can be wise enough to not make those choices, more power to you. But I wouldn't want anyone to have to experience the life that I have. We'll see if I make it to 41. I hope I do.
I wish you the best of luck with that.
And peace and love to everyone that's watching this.
All right, Nate. Thank you very much.
No problem.